I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for February 7th, 2023 at 6:01 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attendance roll call.
Commissioner Graff.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Alderman Madden.
Here.
Commissioner Gazan is not here. Commissioner Buckmaster.
Here.
Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Mayor Podfolsky.
Here.
Claire Chipotowski.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, February 3rd.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from the December 6th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Public hearing. Public hearing for the conditional use grant in accordance with the Muskego zoning ordinance for the purpose of allowing a dog daycare and boarding facility located at South 81 West 19079 Apollo Drive, tax key number 22259999003. Planner?
Yeah, I'll just kind of do a quick overview and we can talk about in more detail when the agenda item comes up. But simple idea is there's an existing building on Apollo. A portion of the building is being proposed as a new dog boarding and doggy daycare facility with some grooming. They'll have indoor and outdoor areas, predominantly indoor. They'll have a small outdoor area though that is part of it. They are looking at having a possibility of a maximum of 100 dogs during the day with 20 dogs overnight. Zoning, it is allowable with the conditional use grant in that zoning district, hence the hearing tonight.
All right. Anyone who would like to be heard on this matter, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address. Don't rush up. All right. Seeing none, I will declare this public hearing closed. Public hearing for the conditional use grant in accordance with the Muskego zoning ordinance for the purpose of allowing an expansion to a mini storage facility located on a vacant lot east of Racine Avenue and north of Tans Drive, tax key number 2177.933.002.
So this site here is the Muskego Storage Company. It's an expansion of their existing site. Their existing site is south of what they're proposing today. This site was approved many years back for storage in a different layout with different aesthetic, but they never really went forward with the project at that time. But now they're looking at building it out. So this hearing is for that expansion of just above 48,000 square feet of mini storage, self-storage within 8 storage buildings.
Thank you. Anyone would like to be heard on this matter, please step forward, state your name, and turn on the microphone. Going once, twice. I'll declare that public hearing closed as well. Next item on the agenda is consent business, and I am going to step aside for consent business and let Ms. Alderman Madden run the show on that.
All righty. For consent agenda tonight, we have Resolution PC 006-2023, approval of building site and operation plan amendment for Muskego Car Wash located on a vacant lot along Commerce Center Parkway west of Moreland Road, tax key number 2169.993.014. And Resolution PC 007-2023, approval of a 2-lot certified survey map for Stephen Sobieski located at South 104 West 14949 Loomis Drive and South 103 West 148236 Loomis Drive, tax key numbers 2298.998.002 and 2298.978.001. Any comments, questions?
The only question is that address actually correct? Because there's too many digits on that address, I think, just for clarification.
The resolution is correct, so we'll make sure that it's documented right in the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Then I'd be looking for motion to approve.
I'll move to approve and gross.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. I turn it back over to the mayor.
Moving on with old business for consideration, Resolution PC 056, 2021, approval of an annual review for Fry Auto located at South 106 West 16301 Loomis Road. Adam, what do you got for us?
So I'm hoping, next meeting I think would have been when we're doing our normal annual reviews anyway for a lot of the uses. So it's been a whole year, but we did have a lot of progress on the site recently. There was some court proceedings with Mr. Fry, and the site was in compliance to the city's satisfaction. So the court stuff kind of got wrapped up. So we'll probably be bringing this forward for more formal activity next meeting to kind of close it back up and then figure out kind of going forward what the plan commission wants to do as far as what duration of review is kind of in our norm, call it the new norm, whatever that's going to be. I know Mr. Fry is still working on solidifying all of the details for that southern site across the street where he was looking at having the outside storage. That isn't finished yet, but his main site was in compliance as of the last time we had to do a court inspection. So we'll be bringing a formal resolution forward to clean it up probably at next meeting.
Any questions or comments? All right, moving on to new business for consideration, Resolution PC 002, 2023, approval of a conditional use grant and building site and operation plan amendment for Rachel Weiss of K9 Wonderland LLC located at South 81 West 19079 Apollo Drive, tax key number 2225999.003.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Adam.
So as was mentioned, like I said, I'll give a little more detail. This is for that dog daycare and kenneling facility. As I noted, 100 dogs were listed as a maximum during the day with 20 dogs boarding overnight. Property zoned M2 general industrial with any kind of animal kenneling requiring a conditional use grant. To give you a perspective, we currently have 2 similar uses in that park and we have not had issues with them. So that's a good thing. As far as hours, typically 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with grooming from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday and Saturdays when needed. The space they're leasing is about 8,100 square feet. They will kind of break the interior space into a couple different uses, whether it's for grooming, boarding, open play areas, indoor play areas. They are showing that there's 15 parking stalls designated for this business. 6 of them would be for staff. 1 would be for a shuttle. One of the things they want to offer is actually a shuttle to pick up your dog and or drop off your dog depending on where you live. It's kind of a unique amenity there. As far as when they unload the dogs from the shuttle, they'll be brought inside the building as there is an overhead door since it's an industrial type building. They are proposing an outdoor play area of approximately 12 by 24 feet for the dogs. We'll have like an AstroTurf material. They are going to have some chain link fencing around that area. Staff doesn't typically encourage the new installation of chain link slatting as it doesn't typically hold up the best. So one of the things that we do have listed in the resolution is that the resolution is stating that the fencing around the outdoor area should be solid wood or like a PVC vinyl, something to keep with the other aesthetics that we've approved more recently in the area, but minor detail there in the city's eyes. As far as potential nuisance of barking dogs, the owners have stated that they will do a rotation type basis for any dogs that are outside. So just making sure that they're getting cleaned up after when needed, at least daily, and making sure that the noise doesn't get excessive and they'll kind of swapping the animals out. If there would ever be any issues or complaints relating to noise, this is something that would obviously have to come back to the plan commission at that time. Other than that, they're not really proposing any exterior alterations, and there's just general notes in the resolution, standard things like signage needing permits, lighting having to be approved by the city with certain specs and so on. And the only outside storage is allowed to be the 1 shuttle bus that they mentioned. The only thing that if staff suggested the plan commission may want to talk about, but may not, would be the quantity of animals. 100 just kind of seemed like a lot, but I know that the applicant mentioned talking with their vet and some of the professionals, this was kind of a suggested number based upon the square footage and space that they have. we did, Aaron reached out to some other communities in the area as far as if they have any kind of specific regulations they like to use as far as how many, and there was no real strong answer. So a lot of the communities kind of just wing it and see what works and, base it on noise complaints and stuff. So staff's okay leaving it that way if Plan Commission wants to.
You mentioned that we have 2 facilities now and not an issue. How large, what's their max capacity on those two?
I thought when I was sitting here that you're going to ask that. I do not know off the top of my head. I know that no single one, I don't think, can anywhere be above 50. They might even be less than that. I can't say that with certainty, though. I don't necessarily know that the spaces are comparable. This is a pretty large space. The other ones aren't as large. I know definitely one of them isn't. I know one of them focuses more on training, and the boarding is more of a little side gig, where this is a little bit more full-blown big daycare facility.
The concept is fine with me. When I saw 100, it was shocking to me. Got a little bit of history with those kind of places. And it doesn't take much for noise complaints to occur, and almost with no control of staff. It's hard to manage once it starts. So I'm a bit, that 100 number kind of really concerned me. And yet it's a large facility, I understand that. But you can't control noise once it's generated. You can't control it.
What are
100.
What are our options if there are noise?
If a complaint comes through an elected official, or even to the city for that matter, if we want to word it as such, even staff, we would probably address the owner to let them know what the issue is, and via letter or something, and saying, hey, this has been the issue. You got to kind of rein it in. And then if that doesn't help, then we'd probably bring it back here to see if there's, the Plan Commission wants to alter the number of dogs that were originally approved.
So we can do that relatively easy?
I believe so. Yeah, it would just, as long as there's the direction that, normal complaints go through an alderman. In this case, do we want to say if staff even gets a complaint, do we want us to act on it, which we can do that? One dog barking loud once isn't going to be the concern. Most people are pretty tolerant until it gets excessive.
Well, the mayor lives around 800 feet from here, so if there's noise, the city may hear about it. So.
No, I just think there need to be a trigger someplace in there.
Yeah, anytime, especially with conditional use grants, when there's a complaint that, is a little subjective, but if there's a complaint, we have the ability to bring back any conditional use grant at any time because they are basing it on certain conditions.
Right.
I'm comfortable enough with leaving it as is, and as long as I know if I start hearing stuff, it'll be back here relatively quick.
Okay. I have 2 questions. The overall size of the building and how much of that building is being used for interior, and the outside yard is just for a small play area?
Yeah, outside they're listing about 20 by 24 feet. They'll have to get a zoning permit from us so we can solidify that for sure, to make sure that the drive aisles remain wide enough. As far as their lease space, I believe is about 8,100 square feet. I think it's about half the building. Is that, would you say about right? Yeah. So the other half has an existing tenant in it.
Okay. To give you some context, the Central Park across the street, that area is probably about 1,000 square feet, maybe 1,200.
The standard kennel will be 4 by 10, so 40 square feet, so that'll allow 200.
They have a lot of open areas, kind of the concept of more socializing. There are kennels around perimeter depending if a dog's getting groomed or overnight and things like that, but it's a lot of larger kind of open communal spaces, not everyone's in their own kennel all day long.
And the biggest area that I've seen where the noise complaints is because there was outside kennels, and it doesn't sound like there's outside.
Yeah, no outside kennels. It'll just be more of a run/play area, thing like that.
The noise is going to be minimal. It's going to be inside the walls.
Okay.
Does the petitioner have anything you want to add? No? No? Okay.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions? Do you understand all the restrictions on this? I do. And if you don't meet them, you'll hear back from us. Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution PC 003-2023, approval of a conditional use grant and building site and operation. for Muskego Storage located on a vacant lot along Racine Avenue, tax key number 2177932.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion, Adam?
So as I mentioned, this is for kind of an expansion of an existing storage facility located by Tanz and Racine Avenue. There was a previous conditional use grant actually on this property for storage units quite a long time ago. I think there's questions if that expired, but also the plan changed quite a bit for the better, I would note. And so that's the plan you see in front of you tonight. Definitely staff worked quite a bit with the landowner, and I want to give them credit for, working on a building that I think is pretty aesthetically pleasing, especially as far as storage units go. Sometimes we have a lot of people that come to us with storage units and they want to put up the smallest, cheapest pole building and that's it. And they don't want to put any design to it. So I know the owner went through quite a few renditions to kind of make this look more palatable for the area. So they're showing about 204 new storage units, total of 8 buildings, kind of be built in phases. As far as access and site flow, the plan is ultimately to combine this lot with the lot next door to it, so they'll really function as one in the end. So the existing site, which is south of this one, that will serve as the access point. They're doing a little bit of reworking of fencing and stuff down in that area that will facilitate people coming into the site better without backing up onto the road. And then they would traverse through the existing site to get to the new buildings that would be on the north side. As far as accessibility, they would be accessible 24 hours a day, keypad, but our experiences at least have a pretty tight window when people actually seem to choose to use them. Not expecting too many people per day. I think they're talking about 8 guests per day is typical. They said based on past experience, and 8 on weekdays and 8 on weekends. This area is governed by the Racine Avenue and general design guides. So it does talk about, 50% masonry, things like that. So the way that the layout of the buildings are, you'll see that the building that's facing Racine Avenue, which is on the screen right now, the top building, definitely has the most decoration to it. It has a good portion of masonry. They have a few cupolas. They actually did a few bump outs, which you can kind of see in the side views and on the rendering, so there's actually a protrusion out. So it's not just this big flat long wall like we've seen on a lot of our storage facilities before. They have a few false windows to just give it a little bit of a decorative feel, but definitely giving it some sense of design. The masonry ends up being on the areas where there's not an exposure. I believe it's about 3 feet, and then there is kind of an exposure the way it's built into a hill, so the masonry on the front side will be larger. The upper portion of each of the walls is proposed as an LP Smart Side, cedar looking panel. So it isn't a metal building. So these have more residential kind of scale and caliber materials, which is something typically design guides kind of look for. So like I said, you won't see any steel on these buildings. As far as the design guides go, like I said, they're pretty much meeting the overall design guides. Now, not all the buildings have 50% masonry, but the sides of the buildings have the banding. You're not going to ever see really the garage doors much unless you're looking at them from angle, as the garage doors face each other and they kind of will face east and west, and you're really going to see more the north and south sides of the building. So the parts that you see will have some masonry banding. There won't be masonry in between the garage doors, but you're not going to see them much, and it would be such a small sliver, you're probably not really gaining much there. As far as, like I said, general access goes, the proposal right now meets all the requirements as far as drive aisles, widths, and spacing and things like that. They are proposing landscaping throughout the site, but landscaping will be, final review upon building permit time. One of the things that is mentioned in here is regarding, wanting curbing on the site. And I think the bulk of the site is curbed. So basically it's the perimeter of the site is something we typically like to see curbed on these new sites, especially when they're on or near a commercial corridor. So the resolution has notes relating to that, as well as the bulk of the plan shows that already. They are proposing expanding the chain link fence that exists. Typically chain link fencing, as we mentioned, isn't the most desirable thing we look for, but they're not trying to screen. And if you're not trying to screen or hide something, it's less of a concern. And then this will match that site next door to it, which is trying to, in the end, look as one cohesive site. As far as lighting goes, they'll have to meet all of our typical lighting specs, full cutoff, 0-degree tilt, things like that. Final lighting details would need to be submitted as part of building permit approval. If they have any kind of mechanicals, HVAC, transformers, things like that, which there shouldn't be much in this scenario, they have to screen those, which we want to see at the time of permitting. Otherwise, there's the typical notes in the resolution relating to bollard colors matching buildings and light pole heights requirements, and there's no request and as such no approval for any outdoor storage on this site. Everything will be kept indoors. And that we do have the resolution requiring an annual review on this in March of every year, which is what we typically do for any new storage. And if they over time can show a good, clean track record, we can extend that out as we've done with some other uses. So staff's recommending approval subject to the conditions in the resolution.
Comments? Yes.
Just as a matter of record, I'll abstain. I wasn't involved in any of the design, but my company and one of the employees at my company provided the 3D renderings. So just in the conflict of the client paying my firm, I'm going to abstain tonight. So.
Is there any consideration for continuity between the new design and the old?
Good point. Yeah, I should, yeah.
That runs west, the most west building?
So that's kind of a conversation we had with the landowner. They have expressed interest in doing something to the existing buildings to kind of tie them together a little better, give them a little facelift if you want to call it that. There aren't specific plans yet, so I don't have specifics on it. It's definitely something that the owner, though, has mentioned that they're willing to look at. Kind of, they want to just have time to kind of think about it. Let me just look here. I think we had,
That we can kind of influence in that regard?
I think we could make a requirement that says like within 1 year of approval. I think you want to give them some time, right? Let them get their feet under them. But I think if you wanted to make a requirement that says within a certain amount of time that they come back with a proposal to do some kind of facelift, continuity plan, I don't know what term you want to use any word you want. You know, something that kind of ties the buildings, at least some of the exteriors, and maybe not the internal units as much. I think that would be a fair request, potentially. I know we talked something about it in the resolution. I think it was more so that just says when they want to do it, they have to come back. But we could set a time frame if we wanted.
Well, even if, again, it's the perimeter, so what the facial view is from the west and from the south, I don't recall what you see from the east.
East, there's another commercial building, so I don't think there's much there. So it would be more of a southern and western.
It's like almost like a manufacturing strip mall.
Yeah, I know there's something there, I just can't recall what it was. But from a perspective of, you're entering Muskego, it is our, you've got the new building, obviously the new construction going in, and then you have this, and, continuity would, in my regard, would be worthwhile.
I don't disagree with you on that. I guess my question would be, what if this were a non-related petitioner? I mean, what authority do we have over the existing site?
That's why I say, what influence do we really have?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I mean, I prefer not to have any storage units on Racine Avenue, but they're there. So,
How do you word that in a conditional use grant? It just seems,
Like I said, I think the plan commission can require it being conditional. I think it's a reasonable requirement if you guys set it, some parameters, but I don't think you have to require it either. The best I can say is the owner has expressed to us that they would like to do something to it down the road, just they don't have specifics now.
I'm fine with the way it is.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I would love to see that. I don't want to be overstepping our bounds.
No,
Do you want to just, maybe just
Maybe you could put us at ease.
mention any future hopes you have, and maybe that helps them?
We obviously are building really nice new buildings.
Go, bring your mic on. Where's that get turned on?
It might be on, you just might have to go closer to it.
We are building really nice new buildings, and the old buildings, they're just pole buildings. So they have just one slot of brick on the front. So we're thinking more like painting and more landscaping around there, because to try to match what we have is going to be almost impossible.
I mean, literally, the buildings it's just aluminum on a stud that's like, they're not even 24 inches on center, are they?
Right.
They're Menards buildings.
Yeah, I think with the painting and with the extra landscaping around there, I really want the left side to be the focal point and the right side to not be the focal point, maybe even with better landscaping to kind of clean that up. Because, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how much I can really do when you're building something new like that with the brick and everything we're doing to the old. I mean, I think
That's
paint
fair.
would go a long
But
way.
if we could, even if we could influence that portion of it, say that let me use my own words here, minimize the landscaping around the new buildings and accentuate it on the old buildings, it influences what you see. So can we build that into that statement?
Yeah, I mean, any changes that they would want to do to the other site would need to come back here.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of, I guess, when.
But the conditional use is specific for this, right?
Correct.
So,
I think we're stepping
yeah,
further than.
I mean, we're not talking
As much as I
about-
would like, I also don't
so
like.
All right.
I think we just need to stay
No, I
focused on
understand.
what
I
the CUG
understand.
is about, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I appeal to you then, from my chair.
Anything you do to the other site to enhance the aesthetics
I'll
would be
drive by
very much
slow.
appreciated.
No, and I want to, because like I said, we're spending a lot of money on the left. We want the right side to look nice too. I mean, it looks old. It looks, I mean, the paint is peeling on it. It needs to be addressed. So we're planning on getting this done, then coming back and figuring out how we can make the old look good.
Okay. Thank you.
Is this under one tax key number?
It is not now. It will be down the road, but it is not now.
Okay. So as we're looking at this right now, this is two separate entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is my concern.
That's why I brought it up. Just-
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously
One abstention.
with one abstention. I'm sorry. It wasn't unanimous. Moving on to resolution PC 004, 2023, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Jewel Homes located at W173 South 7600 Westwood Drive, tax key number 2196031. Somebody want to help me get this on the floor here?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Adam?
So this proposal before you is from Jewel Homes, John Jewel, who is seeking a plan amendment relating to an approval they received from the Plan Commission back in June of 2020. They purchased a building that was kind of south of the, I think commonly known as Jerome Drugs, strip mall building off of Westwood. And there was an existing smaller building, I think it was previously used by a plumber or something, smaller kind of passive kind of use. And as part of that proposal, there was a slew of proposed improvements and changes, building an addition, painting the building, site repair work, landscaping, a whole bunch of stuff that was approved. Some of the items have been done, some of them have yet to be done. I know that the landowner's working towards wrapping that site up. But one of the things that was specifically identified in the resolution, the original proposal basically was that the paving needed repair work. So the idea was to try to repair as much of the paving as was possible to make the site work for their needs. The resolution then went further to state that if I'll read you the exact wording. It said, be it further resolved that if at any point the parking or driveway area is reconstructed, the city would require concrete curb and gutter throughout the site. So as we heard earlier tonight, and as we've seen on other sites lately, when a property is either newly built specifically, but also if a site's being, improved, renovated, altered, whatever you want to call it, and it's either in, along, or close to a major commercial corridor, we typically are going to, at staff level, recommend curbing, more so than any reason from an aesthetic purpose, but it also can have functionality for drainage and stormwater. So that's why we worded it this way. So we have a couple of sites, I can give you examples specifically where they expanded a parking lot. We only had them curb the expansion, and the area that stayed as was, they didn't have to curb it. And if they would ever do the other half, they'll have to curb that side then. So that was the logic that staff used at the time when we wrote that original resolution. Now at this time, staff became aware that all the paving was removed at one time, and we reached out to Mr. Jewell and had the conversation, and it was noted that the asphalt that was there was too far gone. The asphalt company basically said it's beyond repair. So they were saying they couldn't really repair it. So the solution was to remove what was there and put in new asphalt. So, in our eyes, that's a replacement. So at that time, we made it clear that the requirements of the resolution were curbing on this site, even though this site and the site next to it are owned by the same owner now, and they are connected, kind of like the last issue, 2 separate sites, 2 separate issues. So what the kind of common solution was is that we allowed Mr. Jewell to pave this past fall, so he didn't miss the window of asphalt plants closing, with the contingency of having to put the curbing in this upcoming spring or summer unless he came to the Plan Commission for a waiver. So that's what this request was. Mr. Jewell requesting the waiver to not put the curbing in. There was 3 reasons. You'll see 3 main reasons in Mr. Jewell's write-up, talking about the parking lot that's north of his doesn't have curb and gutter, so there shouldn't have to be here, no aesthetic gain. There was mention about to achieve drainage on the site, the added curb and gutter would impede that. And there was the mention that the original resolution, no curb and gutter would have been needed for repair work, and that what was done basically was repair work, as there was no other viable option. So staff just kind of looked at this because it's something that whenever we meet with anyone that's proposing commercial improvement, and like I said, there was a couple in here tonight, we do recommend curbing. There's actually the next item tonight, we'll talk about curbing also, is something we look to have done when there's, like I said, new paving installed. It is an aesthetic, highly aesthetic purpose. It also helps keep people in the site where they should be. We have lots of problem on sites, especially with the spring thaw and stuff times a year, where cars or trucks may be kind of veering off the pavement, rutting things up. As far as drainage and stuff goes like that, talking to our city engineer, curbing is usually something that's used to help drainage. Now I understand it, curb could be a blockade of some sort, but between different techniques with curb cuts, which are very commonly used, our city engineer recommended curb cuts being an option that would allow the curbing to remain and not obstruct flow. So you can still have water flow if need be. And so basically the Plan Commission tonight needs to discuss on, what they want to do with this. And if it would be something where the Plan Commission were to say curbing isn't necessary, I guess staff would just look for some direction so we can provide other future business owners, what's the difference of when we should be suggesting it or not, as it has been the typical norm for us as of late.
So this was brought here for the reasons Adam spoke, but partially also for long-term direction, that how do we move forward with this as similar things coming up? My opinion on this particular one was the way it was worded in the original resolution wasn't probably the best. I mean, either have them replace the parking lot or don't. So we, like he said, we did let him put the parking lot in last fall, so he didn't miss the window of opportunity with the asphalt plants shutting down at that time. Asked him that he needs to come forward to get a waiver for the curbing on this one. My one concern with curbing in a situation like this is we have many parking lots around the community that probably could get improved, and I just never want it to be an impediment over having it done. Of like, okay, I'm gonna do the parking lot. Well, if I gotta put concrete curbing in now, I'm just going to leave it as is. So that's the thing to weigh on here. Beyond that, have your discussion. And I'm not sure if the petitioner wants to add something to what's been said here already. Okay. I'm really not going to bat for him on this one, but it's going to sound like it here. The curbing on the one side, the hill goes this way, so that curbing is not going to really help anything in this particular one. But overall, I agree with the city engineer. Curbing does help drainage. In this particular one, I don't think has a negligible opinion.
One thing to mention, we should have included this in the packet. In front of you is a little drawing, looks like this here. This was kind of the plan that was talked about with Mr. Jewell when he was getting the paving permit, so that if there was curbing installed, this is the plan that it would follow, just to kind of give you an idea. And like I said, you'll notice it stops at the lot line. So even though Mr. Jewell owns both facilities, none of the curbing requirements were put on anything that crosses the lot line, as that's a separate site. So we weren't requiring it there or suggesting it there.
So a couple of thoughts on here. So when we require curbing, gutter, we're usually fairly stringent on that. And if one person is allowed to not do it, then it follows suit down, right? So unless, I guess we have had circumstances where the road was going to be repaved and curb and gutter were going to be put in. I mean, there are avenues that exist. Going down Pioneer Drive, and even the West West here and a few others, I guess doesn't look bad if the site is kept up. And I'm wondering how well this site is being kept up per the original BSO.
Well, they don't have occupancy formally yet, because I don't know if the buildings, I know that there's things that have to be done in the main building yet, and I think there's some storage out there that's not allowed to be out there.
And I guess that's always been the concern when we look at this, and I agree with the mayor that there are parking lots here that certainly we would like to have redone, right? And just for aesthetics and stuff. And so if someone does it, you know, I'm certainly not looking to penalize them for, and then all of a sudden you sock them with curb and gutter. But in this case, for there not to be curb and gutter, the site needs to be, I mean, that BSO needs to be followed. I mean, garbage out there, I mean, there is quite a lot driving by. And I'm just not sure, yeah, I mean, so those are my thoughts on this. So, but as far as giving you guidance, I'm not quite sure I know enough right now how to word that on how I would give you guidance going forward in order to be equitable to whoever came forward saying, well, I want to be waived now too, right? And this is really not a big concern for me. I guess I'm kind of 50-50, but in order for me to support not requiring curbing gutter, I would want the BSO followed.
We've gotten some reports recently from some neighbors that there's some trailers on site or something, and your approval allows no outside storage.
If you could come to the microphone if you're going to come back and forth. So.
The one trailer that's on site's a dump trailer. It's a replacement for a dumpster. So it's if you're familiar with a dump trailer, it's just what it sounds like. It's a dumpster on a trailer. Smaller than a dumpster. We don't need a full dumpster at this point anymore. So that's the one that's on site.
And it's for the dumping of the material that you're doing on your remodel, or is it
correct.
Just okay?
Yeah.
It's not being stored there for.
Nope. So it'll be out of there. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be out of there. Then we got a cold snap and all this stuff because I want to say we put it there right after Christmas, somewhere in that vicinity, and then here we are now.
I think from my perspective, you're in a unique position, John, where you could actually, if at least that's known, that this stuff is being done, and the city is aware, residents call, and then that communication's there. But so you're in a pretty good spot where, for me anyway, where if you wanted curb and gutter to not be a requirement, I would just want you to adhere to that BSO. And make sure that the site is I think there were I didn't see the original here, but I mean, it's quite a bit.
Just finishing the project, the painting and stuff that we've talked about.
Oh yeah, that's going to get done. It's just.
Excuse me, what's the intent for the building? What's the use?
It's just storage.
Long-term, it's storage.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So yeah, I mean, we can't complete it because it's 20 degrees out. I mean,
when do you think you'll have the building? When do you think it'll be going for occupancy? Because I might have a solution here.
April, if the weather cooperates. I mean, if I got to be put to a deadline, I'd say May. Just knowing what the weather can do. It's painting is the biggest. When can we do
One
it?
suggestion would be we just defer this until September or so and let him get his occupancy, keep an eye on the site. If it's being well kept, bring it back here and said he's been following it.
I'm fine with that, as long as that, because that's usually the key here is that the BSOs.
And if he's not keeping up with the BSO, then you would deny it in September, make him put the curb and gutter in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll adhere to what's there. I mean, without creating an argument, we took a dilapidated piece of crap and made it look nice, and then
And you did.
I
The
didn't-
parking lot looks good.
things, and I didn't come in and, just because the asphalt was what it was, and it was October, I don't know exact timelines, so at that point, you gotta get moving, so.
All right.
And it's not done, I agree with that, it'll be done this spring.
I'll move to defer if we're good with that. You good with that? All right, I'll move to defer.
I'll second that.
So one other thing before we defer this, because I don't want to just end conversation on this. Where are we with giving Adam and staff direction on something similar to this coming forward? Or, I mean, it puts him in a rough situation.
For me, I would have to
And
think
I got an
about this.
earful on it, and I get it, the frustration on it, but,
You wait a month or?
Well, do we,
so we can think
how
about
about, do we
this?
keep status quo and recommend it, and then when they come forward, they can discuss it with the board?
If you're
on a case by
comfortable with
case?
that.
I would keep
Staff.
status quo until we give direction otherwise, yeah. But this is a good example, though. It actually is. But I just want to make sure the site's like managed to the BSO. Because then it kind of makes sense. But in order to give direction, I just don't think I know how to phrase that yet. But if the other commissioners have some thoughts on that, you could take that down and come back next month with some written guidance that we could go over.
no, I mean, the other guidance would be staff continues to require it, and if petitioner doesn't want it, they come in front of us and ask.
That would be fine.
Until that time, sure.
Yeah.
Although, one thought I had was usage, whether it be the frequency of use or the end use. We want to be presentable. We're going to have high traffic area. We're going to have a low traffic area. You said it's storage. The question might be, beg is, well, what does that mean from a traffic standpoint? If somebody came in there once a month or once a week, and it's one truck or one van or what have you, it's pretty low activity level. And on the other hand, if you said it's a commercial building with the public who's going to be in there on an hourly basis, I'd feel totally different. So I'm just throwing that out for a potential.
And I'd add to that, if if it improves stormwater conditions on a site by adding curb and we'd had problems there, I would totally want
Absolutely.
that.
Then that maybe trumps everything
Yeah.
else.
And when I look at the pictures on this, I mean, if I would have looked at this in the beginning, I mean, I could define maintenance a few different ways here. I mean, this is so far gone that, I mean, to me, maintenance is taking it out and putting it back in, and without that definition, I feel like it can only go one way, and that would be planning commission judgment call, right? If we're going to leave it the way we have it now.
Got enough direction?
Yeah, no, I think that's clear.
You made a motion to defer to September?
September, so you can
Yeah.
continue on.
Give
Then
them,
we'll just
3-4 months of,
Yeah, and then what we'll do is,
got the gist of where we'll probably go, right? Just
Yeah, if we get it
Please.
done and we
Just
take care of what we're supposed to.
cool. Okay.
make sure
so we're
the
good.
vehicles are staying on the paving. It sounds like a stupid thing, but we really run across that a lot. But yeah, we'll put a reminder on our calendar, and then you don't need to submit anything new. We'll just look at it, put some photos together, and come back in September then.
okay. Who seconded?
I do.
Madden, all those in favor, motion to defer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's deferred until September. Thank you. Resolution PC 005-2023, approval of a building site and operation plan for Royal Recognition located at South 83 W19105 Saturn Drive, tax key number 2228999-008. Anyone?
Move to approve.
Second. Everyone's sleeping.
Adam?
Thanks, Mayor. This approval is for Royal Recognition. They're one of our businesses located in kind of on the western side of the business park across the street here. They are looking at doing an addition onto their building, just under 17,000 square feet. They did an expansion some years back, and obviously business is going well, which is good to hear. And as such, they're looking at doing a further expansion. Portion of it will be kind of larger warehouse. Another portion will have a mezzanine, so they can have some different uses in there. From the road, the front portion of the addition will be, you'll see a little bit of the building. This site is kind of unique. It's a rectangular site, but it really only connects to a cul-de-sac on a little triangle, a little corner of it. So a lot of the existing building will actually kind of cover a portion of the new proposal. What they're proposing here, the addition will be 100% masonry. There will be some overhead doors and service doors and such for access to the building. There are some windows also proposed on the building. As far as the general design, there's a mix of split face block, textured block on the east facing Saturn elevation, as well as a small portion of the southern elevation. And then they'll have some standard CMU block on the remainder of the other elevations that are less visible. There are a few sections that will have some different color painted block also that kind of go with the color scheme that the building currently contains throughout the site and throughout the building. As far as the overhead doors go, renderings show that they'll be white, which would match the existing overhead doors. We typically want existing and proposed doors to match, so that's good. As far as the general site goes, like I mentioned, access is located at the end of Saturn, and so they're going to keep the existing entry there. They are proposing a parking lot expansion as there's just a larger need and better access to the site and to the new addition. 34 new parking stalls are proposed around the perimeter of the parking area. Stalls are currently listed at 9 by 20, which meet our 9 by 18 minimum or larger requirements, so that's good. The design guide does call for landscape islands for every grouping of 10 stalls, kind of separate. So if there's like a 20, have a 10 in the middle or something. In talking with the applicant earlier today and kind of looking at the site and seeing that there are really no other curb protrusions anywhere, and kind of just given the access to the site and then narrow spot that kind of pops in there near the corner of the building, staff, per the applicant's request, was okay removing that one requirement for the one landscape island. So that could be a potential amendment here. But other than that, we are suggesting curbing on the perimeter of this new site. So basically the entire southern and kind of eastern, if you want to call it, face of the parking lot would have curb and gutter proposed. So that's something we have listed. The applicant did mention to me that they did not have a problem with that. They actually mentioned that with that and the removal of the curb island, it actually would probably help drainage, as this site is really, really flat. So they're doing everything they can in their toolbox to make sure they can get water to drain as it needs to here. As far as the refuse enclosure goes, there is an existing refuse enclosure that's kind of by the front entry to this site. It's an existing chain link with slatting. They are proposing to relocate it as part of this build out. So one of the things staff mentioned in the resolution was the typical suggestion and requirement that we don't typically like to see slatting as a new, or as a, when someone's redoing a site, a slatting doesn't really screen well. It hides minimally and usually doesn't last the longest. So the resolution was listed as requiring a wood or vinyl fencing or masonry if they wanted, but they didn't have to screen that newly located trash enclosure. As far as lighting goes, we'll have to make sure that any new lighting meets all the current lighting specs as far as mounting heights and pole heights and concrete base heights, and if they're on the wall, different fixture heights, and we'll review that at the time of building permitting. Any signage would need further city review. As far as one thing that is noted, as is typically done on these reviews, is any new or replaced rooftop units, wall-mounted units, ground mechanicals, so things like HVAC, transformers, etc., do need to be screened from view from, we have it listed as all sides, as typically required, and normally staff would review that with the applicant at the time of building permit submittal and then verifying it at occupancy. One thing the applicant and I did talk about on the phone today was really the biggest concerns for view would really be from Saturn or from the west. And the west view is a little more distant, but there's a pond behind this property and then there's some homes. North is the city yard, so there's really nothing you're trying to hide from there. And south is a large building, so there's really nothing you're going to see from there. So the main areas we'd be looking at screening, if it's needed, would be from the kind of the west and east sides, but we may not even need it. The applicant mentioned they can do some view diagrams and kind of look at what might be necessary there. So otherwise, staff is recommending approval subject to the items known in the resolution. It also does note that there is no outside storage allowed, as is typical unless specifically requested. So the only thing we may, if Planning Commission would agree, would be removing the requirement for the curb island, the one in the parking lot. Other than that, the resolution could stand as is if the Planning Commission agrees.
Discussion?
Which curb island, is it just one?
They don't show it on here. We were recommending it based upon the number of parking stalls, but the applicant asked for it to be waived, and since they are agreeing to the curbing along the southern edge, it throws a little weird dynamic into some of the grading and drainage, and like I said, having one in a parking lot of this size doesn't really gain anything. It's not an area where, normally the purpose is landscaping. They can landscape around it if that was really the concern.
Did you have anything you want to add?
Yes, Eric Newman, Impact General. First off, I just make a comment that the colors that you see on this TV screen are a little bit off from what it really is going to be. The blues aren't really it's not like that green and that aqua color. But anyway, it'll be more matching what they have. It's just kind of an anecdotal comment here, but correct.
We get this too, and it looks a little different on the other side.
Right. So don't shoot us for how that looks on the screen there. And then what Adam and I talked about today was if you see that, right, actually the rendering that's up right now, they have that blue vinyl canopy that's been up there for forever. That we are going to be coming back in a month or two with a new elevation to enter the building that gets rid of that detail. And what Adam and I talked about is we could do something more with some of the curbing and additional landscaping to enhance that entrance when we come back with that submittal. But the fact that site literally from front to back is like a 2 foot of pitch, which for a 500-foot long site is not enough. So adding a curb would become a problem in the center of the parking lot. And that's why we are going to be good with just doing it on the perimeter. And I can answer any questions if you have them.
Questions, comments? Yeah. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Amendment for the landscape island.
Yeah, I was just,
Needs to be reconsider. We just voted on this.
I didn't vote. I didn't say anything.
Just bring it, make a motion, I need a motion to amend, to remove the landscaping.
Okay, so I'll move to reconsider.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, okay, it's back on the floor. Now I need a motion
Motion to amend.
to remove the landscape.
Second.
Right, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to amend. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is now amended. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 6:53.